Hey everyone, so you guys can probably tell that I was a little bit late today on the video. Let's just say that the newborn is definitely affecting the sleep schedule just a little bit, but regardless of that, don't worry, videos will get pushed when they get pushed. But with that in mind, let's take a quick look at a few things because it feels as if we are preparing for a sort of repeat, if you will, of 2020 and 2021. We're going to go over a few things. If you guys did watch the video from yesterday around midnight, I was also talking about a very similar thing with sort of, a little bit of a comparison back to 2020 and what was happening with, the Fed, with stimulus, things like that. Today, if we're looking at the market, right, market cap back to $3.5 trillion plus dollars. We did hit about 3.6 trillion. I'm not too sure if you guys can see it on this chart here. But where we did hit on this chart is right around the lows going back to October 30th. It's also the lows going all the way back to the 22nd. So this is now support that is acting as resistance in terms of the total market cap of crypto. We need to break over this, because again, if we fail to do so, it will allow us to chop and potentially break to new lows, which is exactly what we don't want to do. So we need to flip this level. You can clearly see it on, the middle of like October here. 3.6 trillion is going to be, a little bit of a struggle to break. But once we get over that, I do suspect that the market will run back to some of these previous highs. And then in terms of like the fear and greed index, we are back to 31 because things are starting to change in the market. Things are starting to improve in the market, which we'll also address. Starting off with just Bitcoin though. So like I said, weekly candle close looked very good. It was a great, close. We did close right around the trend line, and now we're just watching for this to just continue to maintain this trend line and potentially have a big break to the upside. I did talk about a few levels in which I would like for Bitcoin to actually break over. If we're looking at this real quick, just on the chart, yes, we do need to break over these recent highs. After that is broken, there's a lot of resistance right around these highs back here at about like 119.5K. And then after that, we just clear the all-time highs. So it's going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to happen overnight or anything like that, but I'm definitely watching for some sort of major impulsive move on Bitcoin during this time because, again, it's going to be a big moment for the market if we can manage to clear some of these previous highs and start to really, chip at some of, the highs that are already on this chart. So definitely watching Bitcoin closely over like the next couple days. And then in terms of XRP, obviously, yes, XRP did have a great earlier day today. We were starting to run up quite a bit, and this did hit a high of about roughly $2 and almost 60 cents. Yes, since it did sell off slightly, which, why is that? What's happening here? Is somebody selling? Are the whales selling? Is Ripple selling? No, right? If we're looking at this on the 24-hour span, over the last couple days, it has come to my attention that we are now witnessing more and more users having money frozen on exchanges like MEXC. This is a big issue, and it's an issue that plagues the crypto space. It's at a time where these exchanges are not fully regulated. It's a big issue. This is why when I've always mentioned if you wanted to hold your crypto in custody, it could be cold storage. It doesn't matter where you are holding it. Never hold it on these exchanges. Now, I will say ITrustCapital does offer a premium custody account, which provides you institutional grade custody. This is a US-based company with live client service and support, and you can buy and sell crypto 24/7 on this platform, which is a closed loop system that is extremely secure with low fees. We could also see here that ITrustCapital does provide you with every single thing that you possibly need when you are buying, selling, or holding crypto on their platform. If you guys do want to sign up with a premium custody account today, you guys are more so welcome to do so through my link that is down in the description below. If you deposit $1,000, you get a $100 funding bonus on top of it. And with that being said, let's jump back on into the video. XRP just hit major resistance right around roughly $2.53. So we need to take out that resistance. And then after that, we're still not out of the water, right? We still have these highs that we need to break over right around like $2 and almost 70 cents. We need to flip the midline here, which is like major support. I would argue like $2.75. And then after that, we have highs to clear on this chart. So I know that you guys don't want me to say this, but we just have to be very patient here. I know that it sucks to hear. I know that you guys hate to hear it, but until we start to break out and really clear bullish structure, I'm not going to be extremely bullish on this price chart, but anything can affect this. ETF announcements, ETF approvals, anything can change these charts in, a very short amount of time. So I'm watching for us to break over some of these highs, start to create bullish structure again, and that's when we start to get a little bit more excited. Now, also, if we're looking at this on the weekly, so the weekly still looks good. I would like to see a lot more out of XRP on the weekly. Like I said, I would like to see a clear of like this $2. I mean, it's $2 and like 60 some cents, but at that point, I'm mainly just looking at $2.76 being cleared. So until we actually clear this, we're probably just I would argue that we just chop within this range a bit. So, just give it a little bit more time. I think that the main focus right now is on Bitcoin just clearing some of its previous highs. That way, that could lead to altcoins also having a very good time in the market. But the reason why XRP was jumping is because of ETFs. I know that a lot of people were talking about ETFs, especially with a lot of them getting listed on the DTCC's platform. We addressed this, earlier yesterday. I was talking about how every single time that we do see ETFs get listed on the DTCC's website, we typically see them move into approval status. So, we already have the Franklin Templeton, the 21 shares, the Canary Capital, and even the CoinShares ones, which are now listed on the DTCC's platform. This caused XRP to jump about roughly 12+%. And if we could start to really move forward on these ETFs and get them approved this week, next week, that will severely affect the price of XRP in a positive way, which I'm hoping if that is the case, then we should start to clear some of these levels on this chart, and we should start to target those previous highs going back to July, right around roughly $3.65. Now, beyond that, today was definitely a big day for stocks. I don't know if anyone was looking into stocks. Obviously, we have been focused on stocks. So $1 trillion was added to the U.S. stock market today. We have here U.S. stocks add $1 trillion on shutdown bill progress and tech surge. So on November 10th, 2025, the U.S. stock market surged by approximately $1 trillion, with the S&P 500 up about roughly 1.5%, NASDAQ up about 2.1%, and the Dow up 0.8%. This was all fueled by Senate advancement of a bill to end the 31-day government shutdown. Tech giants like Palantir, which rose 8.8%, and also Nvidia up 5.9%, led the rally amid optimism for AI growth and economic stability. Social media on X reflected enthusiasm for potential crypto rotations, though some users expressed skepticism about shifting from stocks. I don't think that we're going to see like a crazy massive rotation from stocks. I definitely do think that we should start to see a little bit of a rotation. But I think that the main thing that we are focused on here is just liquidity improvements around these markets, which we'll address in this video. But looking at the S&P, and I did chart this in the Discord as well. So the S&P recently did dip down all the way to the 786 retracement. Then we closed that same day. This was on the 7th, by the way, right on the 618 retracement. So we managed to have a massive rejection all the way to the downside of the 786, closed above the 618. Then today, well, yesterday, if you will, on the 10th, we managed to have a massive open. In fact, it was such a massive open that we closed over and pushed above the first initial high on this chart that I was looking for, which was the October 9th high. This was major resistance. We thought that it was actually going to get flipped into resistance yet again because it was acting as support, but we managed to close above it and push above it. And now we closed right at the first major high here from the 5th, managed to close above that, managed to push above that, and then target the all-time highs from October 29th. And well, we're on our way to the 1618, which is right around 7,100 for the S&P. So I'm watching this closely. Don't really want to see any major rejections. but the S&P is showing us exactly what we should be expecting out of crypto going forward. It's questionable on if we're going to have that same exact rally, but I do think that it is a possibility. So I'm going to be watching Bitcoin closely over this week. I'm going to be watching XRP. I'm going to be watching Ethereum and most of the market. But also to really go back to the whole idea of like, all right, well, this is just like 2020 all over again. Well, let's look at the environment. So I did see a great post from Dan Gambardello, which was, "Dear crypto holder, do whatever you want with this, but $2,000 stimulus to Americans, government shutdown ends, QT ends, Fed cuts rates, Treasury liquidity injections, liquidity flips business cycle to expansion, Clarity Act passes, and altcoin ETF tsunami begins." It feels very similar back to like the 2020 timeframe. I saw a great post from Raoul as well, right? And this is where the title of this video really kind of comes from. I know that I made you guys wait a little bit longer to get to this point. I apologize, but I wanted to go over everything initially to get to this point because, again, with everything that we just went over, I feel like this post is extremely important to read. So we have here, "I know no one wants to hear bullish ideas and everyone is scared and wants to just, again, go against the grain here. But the road to Valhalla is getting very close. If global liquidity is the single most dominant macro factor, then we must focus on that. Remember, the only game in town is rolling $10 trillion in debt. Everything else is a sideshow. This is the game of the next 12 months. Currently, the government shutdown has forced a sharp tightening of liquidity as the TGA builds up with nowhere to spend it, which, by the way, this is also why a lot of these markets have constricted, and it's also the same exact reason why now we're hearing talks about this, bill progress for, the shutdown to end. That's why stocks rallied so hard. I mean, you got to remember, right? From Friday to Monday, and the weekend, stocks are closed, we rallied over 3.23%. That is a difference of $214 billion. That is a massive amount of money and a big push to the upside. Now, let's go back to that post. So, this is not offset by the ability to drain the reverse repo. It is drained, and QT drains it further. This is hitting markets, and in particular crypto, which is the most liquidity driven. TradFi assets or asset managers have had one of the worst years of performance versus benchmark and are now having to chase markets, and that is allowing tech to be more stable than crypto. 401k flows help too. If this liquidity drain keeps going longer, stocks will get hit hard too. However, as soon as the government shutdown ends, the Treasury begins spending $250 billion to $350 billion in a couple of months. QT ends and the balance sheet technically expands. The dollar will likely begin to weaken again as liquidity begins to flow. Tariff negotiations will have largely been completed, removing uncertainty. Ongoing bill issuance increases, adding more liquidity via bank balance sheets and money market funds and stablecoins. Ongoing rate cuts, we will have economic weakness from the shutdown. That will add to the evidence that rates need to come lower, but no, there is no recession. SLR changes free up more of the bank's balance sheets, allowing for credit expansion. The Clarity Act will get passed given the crypto regs so desperately needed for large-scale adoption by banks, asset managers, and businesses overall. The big beautiful bill then kicks in to goose the economy into the midterms. The entire system is now being geared towards a strong economy and strong market in 2026 for these elections. China will continue to expand its balance sheet. Japan will work to strengthen the yen and also fiscally stimulate. The ISM will rise as rates fall and tariff uncertainty drops away. You just need to get through the window of pain and the liquidity flood lies ahead. Always remember that you don't want to mess this up and wait out the volatility. Drawdowns like this are commonplace in bull markets, and their job is to test your faith. So yeah, listen, when we are looking at this chart here, okay, this is the total liquidity index. Right now, if we're looking at the total liquidity index, yeah, we're still kind of in an uptrend, but this really hasn't expanded in a big way. And this is where we really look at what is the Fed going to do next, because we know that we recently got a huge update from, of course, President Trump regarding the tariff dividend of $2,000 per person. This got posted from the Coinbase letter. We talked about it, right? Stimulus checks are officially back. this is what Trump did say, right? He said people that are against tariffs are fools. We are now the richest, most respected country in the world with almost no inflation and a record stock market price. 401ks are highest ever. We are taking in trillions of dollars and will soon begin paying down our enormous debt. 37 trillion record investment in the USA, plants and factories going up all over the place. A dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high income people, will be paid to everyone. So this is basically Trump confirming that $2,000 will be paid out. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time, but I would not bet against this at all. And at the same exact time, we look at what the Fed is doing. And if we go back to October 16th, the Spicy Letter posted a great post regarding the reverse repo, the RRP. So here we have demand for the Fed's reverse repo facility has fallen to $4.1 billion, the lowest since April of 2021. RRP usage, one of the financial system's key excess liquidity metrics, has declined $2.5 trillion since its December 2022 peak. Meanwhile, bank reverses at the Fed dropped below $3 trillion, a level that many Fed officials consider the red line between abundant and scarce reserves. Such a low level can strain the financial system, making it harder for banks to lend money and can cause spikes in market volatility or even bank failures. As a result, Fed Chair Powell just said that the end of QT may be approaching in the coming months as liquidity conditions tighten. Market liquidity appears to be at a critical point. And yeah, this is just like back in 2020 into 2021. This is also going to expand. This is all based around liquidity expanding and increasing. This is where we start to see the entire market wake back up again. So it's all based around liquidity. I do think that Raoul is correct here. I do think that everyone should be preparing to see a complete reversal around liquidity, because again, liquidity at this point has tightened significantly, especially with the shutdown, which lasted 40 days. I mean, I do think that once we see a huge update around that, already stocks are trading as if the shutdown is going to end this week. Once we see a big update with that, we will see crypto roar yet again. So I'm definitely focused on Bitcoin, focused on XRP during this time, and just kind of watching the key metrics on the charts. So far, the charts look very good. I'm not concerned at all. And if we do start to see that liquidity improvement, if we start to see that deal made to end the shutdown, and we start to see these ETFs get, approved as well, that's going to change everything in the space. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.